Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of the Spurs Chat Podcast, where, of course, we'll be talking about everything Tottenham Hotspur. And I've got a very special guest this evening with me. I've got Ben Daniel from Are Tottenham TV. Ben, it's been such a long time. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good, mate. Really good. Looking forward to being here. I mean, it's been a long time coming, doing a stream together. So very excited for this one. So thanks for having me.
I remember the last time I think you and Sim were on my channel was actually, you didn't get invited. You actually just sabotaged my stream because, of course, it was Norwich away under Antonio Conte when we just clinched Champions League. You remember those days?
Yeah, I kind of vaguely remember that. Did I just kind of just barge into your stream, like overexcited me? Yeah,
that's
sounds
it.
Like me, to be honest.
Loved it. and of course, I saw you guys out in Israel in summer. That was good, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was really. I think I might have done the same to you, to be honest. When you were interviewing Sim outside the stadium, I think I might have barged in on that one as well. But I think that one was a bit too many beers. That was my excuse that time.
Oh well, I don't blame you on that. I'll tell you what, Ben, I do miss seeing you guys on the European aways because, of course, no European football this year. But we must warn everyone anyway, because you're on high alert at the moment. You might have to go at any moment. Do you want to tell everyone the news?
Yeah, well, my wife is basically about to give birth any minute now. So at any moment, I can receive the call. It could be today, tomorrow, anytime. So yeah, I'm even off going to Spurs at the moment. That's how bad it is.
I love how the wife's about to give birth, but you're talking to me about Spurs on this stream.
Well, that's how much I want to stream with you, Chris, eh?
Well, let's start with the positives, Ben, because, of course, we have gone round in circles these last few years. And, I remember talking to you guys under Pochettino on a regular basis, and we were all living the life then. Of course, we went to Wembley, come back to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Since then, we've gone through Jose Mourinho, Nuno, Antonio Conte, Stellini, Mason. Now Ange is in charge. How are you feeling right now?
I mean, I'm pretty much on top of the world at the moment. I think I've completely fallen for Ange. I think he's absolutely brilliant. After Pochettino left, I didn't think I could fall in love with a manager so quickly. And it only took basically, even in pre-season, pretty much, I'd fallen in love with him. You could see what he was trying to do, the attacking football, the way he comes across in the media as well. I just feel like every decision he makes seems like the right decision. And I'm just loving it at the moment. I think that we're finally on the right path after so many years in the wilderness. And the signings that we're bringing in as well, all top notch. I think finally the club are going in the right direction. It's so good to see. It's so good to see. And we're seeing a brand of football that we grew up with, that we know, that we love. And it's like kind of moved. You couldn't get any more opposite to like Conte and Jose ball to what we're seeing now. And it's the complete breath of fresh air. And you can see the sense around the stadium at away games, the vibe and the positivity is there for all to see, even when we're losing games, and that's what it's all about.
I've been saying, Ben, in these last few months that I've never known that connection between fans and a manager in the Premier League, let alone Tottenham in the Premier League. Would you agree?
I think that we had that connection under Pochettino. I did.
But it took a few years, though, didn't it?
Yeah. In terms of instant connection, I think I agree with you, to be honest, because you're right. I've never seen an instant connection. And I'm not sure if it's down to Ange himself or it's how starved we were over the past 4 or 5 years that we're just dying for that connection. But I think it's a bit of both, to be honest. But Ange couldn't have done anything wrong in my books. I mean, he's just brilliant. Everything about him is absolutely brilliant.
Just going back over the last couple of years, Pochettino sacked in November 2019. The correct decision for you? Yes or no?
No, definitely not. 100%. How could anyone call that the correct decision after what we've had to go through over the past 5 years? I mean, if anyone deserved to kind of go through the rebuild or, get a second chance, because it wasn't going well at the start of that season, but I felt like we just sacked him at the first sign of trouble. And he deserved a lot more than that. He deserved a lot more respect from the board, in my opinion. And if we would have given him that second chance and would have given him the chance to rebuild, who knows, he could still be here now. Look, I'm not saying I'm very happy with Ange, obviously, but I think that Pochettino's tenure definitely did end too early. And what we had to go through after that was just an absolute kick in the face after what we had with Poch.
Ben, were you one of the fans at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium singing Pochettino's name? in the last season?
No, I wasn't actually. I disagreed with singing his name, to be honest. Even though I did want him back. I'm going to hold my hands up and say that. But I just I couldn't sing his name.
I agree. I didn't either.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted him back. What about sacking Jose at the time we did, a few days before the final? I don't know whether you've seen the clip in the last 24 hours or so, but he went on the Obi-Wan podcast saying that, sacking him a couple of days before the final. Wow, empty trophy cabinet, all of that. Did you agree with that decision?
Look, I think it's an absolutely ridiculous decision for a club that's starving for trophies. 3 days before a cup final, you sack a manager who is known for bringing in trophies. I think it was a ridiculous decision. And I'm of the firm belief that Jose got sacked because we had a slight chance of getting top 4 that season. And he wanted to rest players in the league games and focus on the cup final, which I thought was probably the right decision. If you're starving of trophies as much as we were, going into a cup final against Man City, I think you got to put all the eggs in that basket and try and win that trophy. So, no, I completely disagree with the Jose Mourinho sacking. As much as I thought he was a bad fit for the football club, I was fully on board with Jose. Maybe sack him at the end of the season after that cup final, but 3 days before a cup final is totally wrong. Totally wrong.
Well, news today that Nottingham Forest are about to appoint our former manager that was going to make us proud, apparently, Ben. Nuno Espirito Santo going to Forest. What do you make of that?
You know what? I've actually thought about this one, and I think that it's a good fit for Nottingham Forest. I think he's not. I don't think he's a bad manager. Obviously, I think Tottenham was too much for him. I think Tottenham is too much of a big club for someone like Nuno. But you saw the work he did at Wolves. He did a great job at Wolves. Getting them European football, pushing them up the Premier League table. So I think like a club like Nottingham Forest, where they're quite suited to 5 at the back, and the way Nuno wants to play backs against the wall, I actually think he could do a good job there.
I disagree. I think that Steve Cooper should have remained. I really do, especially the way they gave us a game on Friday evening. Very quickly, Ben, do you want to talk about Conte? What did you make of Conte at Tottenham?
Obviously, first season, the way he got us into that top 4 was absolutely brilliant. I thought from January till the end of the season that year, I thought we were absolutely brilliant. And we actually saw, the nucleus of a Conte team and what he wanted to do. But I think it was always basically doomed to end the way it did with Antonio Conte. You know what he's like, a complete hothead. And if you're going to have Antonio Conte and Jose Mourinho as your manager, you've got to give him a top-class defence to work with. And when he's got the likes of Eric Dier, Jose got Joe Rodon, fine, Conte got Cuti Romero, but on top of that, he got Clement Longley as well. So you've got to give him a top-class players and top-class defence to work with. And if you don't, it's always going to end the way it did. I think on the face of things, both of those managers were the wrong fit for the football club. But having said that, I completely backed them and I completely got on board with it because I felt like it was at a time where the board were going to change the ways that they were going to act. And if they were going to change the ways that they were going to act, I thought it could work. But I was proved wrong yet again. And ultimately, it was the wrong fit, completely wrong fit for the football club. And you've got to go for managers like Pochettino, like Postecoglou, who like to play this brand of football, who can work with the younger players and nurture younger players as well. I just think Conte was just a completely wrong fit. And that's what it came to be.
And before we move on to talk about Ange Postecoglou, you mentioned the board there, and it's fair to say in recent seasons you've been very critical, and your channel has been very critical of the board. Do you see a difference now going forward under Ange, not just by appointing this head coach, but there has been so many different appointments, people going, people coming in at the football club, in recent months. Do you see that we are going now in the right direction? On and off the pitch?
Yeah, I think if I was to say I was a fan of Daniel Levy, would be a big understatement. Let's put it that way. But I think that for everything that we've had to go through in the last 5 years, I think he and the board have been highly culpable of. But as much as you criticize, you've got to commend as well and call it how it is. And I think right now, the club are 100% going in the right direction. So I completely commend Daniel Levy and the board for helping us get back on track, but I don't think it kind of takes away from why we went off track for so many years. But having said that, the recruitment is spot on. I think when he brought in Paratici, and the recruitment since Paratici has come in, I think has been top notch. You look at the signings and the squad that we have now: Destiny Udogie, Pape Matar, Mickey van der Ven. I mean, the team is just full of talent at the moment. So you've got to commend it, and you've got to say it how it is. So as much as we have been off track for 5 years, you've got to say that Daniel Levy and the board have finally seem to have got things right and on the right track. And I just want to see them keep pushing in the way that they're going and keep bringing in talent to the same kind of caliber that we have been bringing in the last couple of windows. So if we keep carrying on and doing that, then I'll have nothing but good things to say for the future of Daniel Levy.
That is the big question, though, Ben. All of us fan channels that cover Tottenham on a regular basis, we're all asking that same question. Is that level of quality going to continue to come in during the transfer windows? How confident are you that that's going to happen? Because the likes of Fabrizio Romano and Ornstein have come out and said that there's not much money to spend, and Tottenham are not going to go out and spend big in the January transfer window. I am of the view that when you look at players like the Celso, who's delivered very little since he arrived in 2019, and Tanguy Ndombele is a record signing, constantly out on loan, and we can't seem to ever get to play very well in the Tottenham Hotspur shirt under various different managers. Is it, in your opinion, is it about going out, spending big money, or is it trying to identify the right players and perhaps get, for example, this January transfer window, if we signed a player like a striker on loan, would you have a problem with that when they can come in and actually do a job? Or do you want the club to go out and spend big? Are you about the money, or are you about the clever deals that the club can do?
I'm actually not about the money. I'm about the clever deals the club can do. All you need to do is go look at the goalkeeper that we signed in the summer, Vicario. 17 million, I think he was, when we were going for him or David Raya. I mean, at the time, I was completely incensed. I was like, why are you going for this guy? I have no clue who he is. David Raya's there. Just pick him up. 40 million.
So you need to calm down, Ben.
Yeah, 100%. I did need to calm down, and I kind of backtracked on that, and I've apologized and said my piece on it. But you need to identify the talent. I don't think it's about spending money and just going out and spending 100 million here, 100 million there. That's not the way to do it. You see how Chelsea have gone down that route. It's not working for them. You see how Manchester United have gone down that route. It's not working for them. You need to identify and with absolute precision in the data analytics, which we're really doing at the moment. And I think every single player that we've brought in has been brought in with those metrics. You see, Mickey van der Ven, we desperately needed a left centre-back. We went out there. We got a pacey, strong centre-back. And I don't think we could have got a better player in that position from what he's shown so far. He's come in, hit the ground running completely. Like I said, Vicario, he's been probably the best goalkeeper in the Premier League this season. That's how highly I rate him. You're looking at all these Pape Matar as well. We bought him maybe a few years back, but he's a player with incredible talent. And I feel like he's only going to keep growing and keep growing and keep growing. Destiny Udogie as well. He's been one of the best left backs in the league. And these players have not been brought in. We didn't break the bank to bring in any of these players. So if you trust the scouting and if you trust the data analytics in the way that we're doing right now, that's the way to go. I don't think the way to go is just go and spend 100 million here and 100 million there. I think the path that we're on is the right path.
And what are you expecting from this season now? Because, of course, Postecoglou's come in. He's shown us straight away that he can play this entertaining style of football, which is great. We're all loving it at the moment. And those home games are like a party atmosphere. I'm absolutely loving it. And the away end, in the away games is absolutely brilliant as well. What have you made of this season so far? And what are you expecting now, particularly after we went on that unbeaten run in the first 10, sitting top of the league?
Well, let's take it back to expectations before the season started, right? Ange Postecoglou comes in. We lose Harry Kane. Everyone outside of Tottenham being like, "Oh, you're just going to fight Fulhams and Crystal Palaces this year. You're not."
Sorry, can I also ask as well your opinion at the time when we appointed Ange? Were you disappointed because so many top European names were coming out that fans wanted the likes of Julian Nagelsmann, and then of course Ange Postecoglou turned up. I know that there were a lot of fans going, we've got our second, third, fourth, fifth choice, but Spurs really wanted him.
When we were first linked with Ange, I wasn't too sure. I knew the work that he did at Celtic and I knew the kind of football that he played, but I wasn't 100% sure that he could come to the Premier League and do it straight away. But after doing a lot of research into him, I did extensive research into this guy because I didn't really know much about him. And I watched interviews of him. I was reading about all his work at his various different jobs out in Japan, the Australian national team, and what have you, and out in Australia as well. And I completely bought into him straight away. Like, I really thought this guy, you know, he can come in and he seems like the right fit. And I had a few people. I've got this a friend of mine who comes on the channel sometimes. He's based in Australia, an English guy, and he's been following Ange his whole career. And he basically was messaging me every night, banging on, Ange is the guy, Ange is the guy, Ange is the guy. And I was like, I wasn't sure at first, but he completely swayed me. The more I researched him, the more I really liked him. And as soon as we signed him, I was completely bought into it. I'm not going to lie, I really was. But back to your question about expectations. I mean, I thought getting into the Europa League this season, going into on a run in a cup would be a really good season for us. To be honest, after losing, you can't underestimate how much it is to lose Harry Kane, your top Premier League top goal scorer of all time, the talisman of the club. I mean, not many clubs, I think, can lose a player of that stature and actually get better. I still don't understand how this has worked, like how we've actually got better after losing Harry Kane. But
is it better or different?
I think it's different and better, to be honest. I really do. I think the football's better. We're not relying on just one man. We're a whole team. We're a cohesive unit. Obviously, we don't have a player that is as good as Harry Kane, but as a team, we are a lot better. I don't think anyone can say otherwise, to be honest. But I think the expectations now, I'm looking at that Champions League spot, to be honest. I think we're only 6 points behind top of the league, but I think our squad is just way too thin to think anything more than a top 4 challenge. I want to really prioritise the FA Cup this year. I think we can do some real damage in the FA Cup, if not go all the way. But if we get top 4 and semi-finals plus in the FA Cup, I think that would be a brilliant season for us. But I'm looking at, beefing up that squad in the summer and in January, and then doing the unthinkable next season.
That's the thing, isn't it? If you get in the Champions League, you've then got to have another excellent window in the summer to then compete in the Champions League. Ben, if I was to ask you, and I know this question comes up on a lot of these types of streams, FA Cup, to win the FA Cup or get into the top 4, what's your priority?
I hate this question. I absolutely hate this question. Whenever anyone asks me this question, saying, I don't want either, I want both, But, in these hypothetical situations, I know you've got to pick one of them. Because we've been starved so long of trophies, usually I've always said Champions League when it was under Pochettino and even under Conte and Mourinho. I've always said Champions League, but now it's just been so long. I just want to get that monkey off our back. And if Ange can do that and deliver it for us, get an FA Cup, I really believe it can be a springboard to go on and do bigger and better things next year. And I think Europa League is a top tournament still. Don't write off the Europa League. If we do get into the Europa League, it's a competition that we can very much win next season. So I would just about side with the FA Cup, but it is tight.
At the end of last season, we did have a chance of getting into the Europa Conference for this season. Did you want it or not?
Not particularly, to be honest. I always thought that if it's between the Conference League or going out of Europe completely with the squad that we had, I just felt like playing one game a week would really benefit us in terms of how well we could do in the league the following season. But having said that, when I saw West Ham winning the Conference League last year,
that's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah, my opinions did change a little bit, and I saw them running around that pitch with that trophy, and it's like, how the hell can West Ham win a trophy before us? I was like, how is this happening? But still, like, if I put that to the back of my mind and forget I saw West Ham lifting that trophy, I still would have decided being out of the Conference League, just because I thought, and I think it is really valuable to us, just being one game a week. And you're seeing even one game a week our squad can't handle with these injuries that we've got at the moment. So if we're in the Conference League this season, I don't think we would be able to handle it.
Ben, what do you think Tottenham are good enough to do this season, though, in terms of league position? Because I think that it's fair to say that most people are very surprised. You know, we're nearly at the halfway point in the Premier League season. And as you mentioned, 6 points away from top, only 1 point away from fourth place and champions Manchester City. It's an incredible position to be in, isn't it?
It's, I mean, I'm pinching myself because I never thought we'd be at this point in the season and be only 6 points behind the league leaders. It's absolutely crazy. As not only that, but for a stretch of 4 or 5 games, we were playing with 2 fullbacks at centre back. I mean, like, how are we in this position? We should not be in this position. And that is testament to Ange, testament to the signings that we have brought in. I would say, like, there's 2 different questions here, because there's what are we good enough to do if we have a fully fit squad? But we never seem to have a fully fit squad. I mean, Bentancur comes back for a year out and suddenly he's out injured again for a foreseeable amount of time. You've got James Maddison, who was probably the best player in the Premier League. He gets a massive injury, probably the biggest injury of his career. Mickey van de Ven as well. It was all heartbreaking to see these players break down. Like that Chelsea game just completely ruined our season. That 5-10 minute period where Romero gets sent off, Van de Ven goes down, Maddison goes down, Udogie gets sent off in the second half. I'm like, this is just so classic Spurs, like how everything had just come tumbling down in the space of 45 minutes. But I actually genuinely believe if we got as lucky to not have these injuries and not have these crazy turn of events that we went through, I think that we could have done something special this season. Like maybe not win the league, but fight for the title and be up there. Because I think, like, if we wouldn't have, let's say that Chelsea game and those crazy circumstances didn't happen, I think we'd be very close to top of the league, if not top of the league right now.
Yeah, I agree.
So to say that, why couldn't we? If we got very lucky and stayed clear of these crazy injuries all the way through the season, why couldn't we have fought for the league this season with the way we're playing our football, with the mentality that we have, with the manager that we have, with the players we have? I think our first 11, everyone fit, is comparable to anyone in the league. Yeah,
absolutely. Ben, when I did my research, as you did, before the season started, about Ange Postecoglou, one thing I noticed that he took a lot of the cup competition seriously. Of course, he won the treble with Celtic last season. Were you surprised? Because I was, when he made 10 changes against Fulham. And the reason I asked that is because, of course, we've got the FA Cup competition coming up only in a couple of weeks' time against Burnley at home. Do you expect Ange to take the FA Cup more seriously than he did the League Cup?
Yeah, if he doesn't, I'll be bitterly disappointed. I really would be, because, look, it's our only realistic chance of winning a trophy from now until the end of the season. The League Cup, look, I think it was a bad decision. I think that's his only real bad decision so far as Spurs manager, to be honest, is that game against Fulham.
But he stood by that decision, didn't he? Saying that he's got to see these players. Was that the right time to do it, or was pre-season enough for him to see those players?
I think, like, we've seen so many times players smash it out on pre-season and then we actually see them in competitive games, and yeah, they've flattered to deceive a bit. So I do believe that he had to see them in a competitive game, but I didn't think he had to make as many changes as he did. Like, I think it was like 9 changes on the day or something.
10.
Like Mickey van de Ven, 10. Mickey van de Ven was the only one I think that played.
Yeah.
I didn't think Fraser Forster had to play. Because Fraser Forster, I thought maybe he should have brought on Vicario maybe just before the penalties or something, because you never want Fraser Forster in goal for a penalty shootout. So I do think it was a bit of a blot against Ange Postecoglou's name, but I'm not going to hold it against him. I do agree that he had to see some of the players. It's just a shame that he had to make so many changes all at once, because I felt like, because we ran them all the way close, right? We nearly won the game. We just lost on penalties at the end of the day. And I think if he would have made maybe just 4 or 5 changes instead of 10, then it could have been a different story.
We know, of course, Basuma, Sarr and Son won't be playing in the FA Cup game, but how many changes do you think he will make from the previous league game for that FA Cup match?
Hopefully, well, the previous league game will be the Bournemouth game, won't it? So you've got all the players that you're talking about that are going to the AFCON and the Asia Cup, so they're forced changes. I'm hoping that he doesn't make any changes apart from that, unless he really thinks in a tactical way that they can help us. Because when you look at it, we've got Burnley, what was it, in the 5th or the 6th? And then we don't play Manchester United in the league until the 14th. So there's quite a big gap between Burnley and Man United from the Cup to the league. So there's no reason to rest anyone in that game against Burnley. So I'm looking to go full strength, to be honest. And I don't think that we should be resting players. No chance.
Ben, what's been your highlight of the season so far when you've been the most happy?
Oof.
I won't ask about the most disappointing. It's probably the Chelsea game, isn't it?
The Chelsea game was just so upsetting because we played so well. And like when we were down to 9 men with that high line, I was like, what the hell is going on here? I've never seen anything like that before, especially in the Premier League. And to be fair to Ange, we nearly nicked it, to be honest. We really did nick it. And Vicario with his sweeping keeping, I thought it was absolutely brilliant. It was a sight to behold, 100%. But what was my best moment of the season so far? I mean, there's been so many. I think like every game, to be honest, when we had our full strength team with Maddison, Van de Ven, I thought Maddison is just such a good player to watch, and his leadership ability. I didn't know this about him before he joined Spurs. He surprised me a lot, James Maddison, because I always knew he had technical ability, but I didn't know he had so much about him like he actually does. So I'd say my favourite game so far this season, probably the second half of the Arsenal game at the Emirates. The way we tore them apart in that game at the Emirates, I thought we should have gone on to win it. The Man City game as well, going there with 4 fullbacks in a back 4 and taking away a point and playing the way we did, I thought was brilliant. Obviously, the last-minute winner against Liverpool, but I wouldn't say that was my favourite game because I don't think we were as good in that game as maybe we have been in previous games. The Burnley game was pretty good. 5 goals away from home up at Turf Moor, I thought was brilliant. Yep. But yeah, there's been so many standout moments already this season. And hopefully there's a lot more to come.
It feels like a long time ago, doesn't it, that our flight in Israel was cancelled?
Yeah, I know. How long did you end up staying there for? I think I stayed there for another 3-4 days.
You guys did. I had to get back to work, so I had to get on another flight. So I booked another flight at the airport. But yeah, you should have seen my face when I thought, I've got a couple of hours just to relax here. And then, of course, it come up on my phone, your flight has been cancelled. My God. Ben, regarding the transfer window, it opens now in 12 days' time. What's the definition of backing Ange Postecoglou in this transfer window? You've already touched on how many injuries we've had this season. We've got suspensions as well, more coming up. To key players. As an absolute minimum for me, of course, we've just signed, or Fraser Forster has just signed an extended contract. I think that we need to strengthen in defence, in midfield and a striker. So for me, I think that bringing 3 players in, 1 in each department, would you agree with that? Do you think that that is doable? Do you think that Tottenham will deliver that to Ange?
Look, it's I agree with you. I totally agree that those are the 3 positions that we desperately need in this January. Centre back is on utmost priority. Eric Dier is not cutting it. I think Eric Dier unfortunately needs to leave after all the service he's given to the club. He's not fit enough to play anymore. He can't play Ange ball in terms of the attributes he has. So a centre back is 100% needed. There's a lot of talk about various different centre backs coming in at the moment. I think we will get that done. I think in terms of the front line, Ange has already spoken a couple of times. The front line doesn't play as fluid as he wants it to be. I think what he really wants from his wingers is to push really far out wide, be one-on-one demons, being able to take on that fullback consistently time after time and get good crosses in the box, maybe hit the byline, cut it back. I just don't think we have wingers that are kind of classic Ange wingers, if you know what I mean, in the mold that I've just spoken about. So I would like to see winger, centre back, but the midfielder one is difficult because obviously we're very short in midfield in January, but after January all our midfielders are going to start to come back. So yeah, true. Yeah. So what do? Do you bring in a midfielder on loan until the end of the season? I mean, Calvin Phillips is there. Do you go for him maybe on loan? He's not getting a looking at Man City, or do you look at someone like Højbjerg and Lo Celso and try to do a deal to get them out of the club, maybe towards the latter stages of January, and maybe bring in that Phillips? So I agree we need in a midfielder, but I feel like that need for a midfielder, if we do keep Lo Celso and Højbjerg, just kind of vanishes after January when all these players start filtering back. So I'm a bit undecided which way to go on that one. I mean, for peace of mind, I would like just to bring one in and see how it goes. But I do think like our midfield options when everyone fit. I don't think anyone in the Premier League has better midfield options like as a group than us. Like Bentancur, what a midfielder. I think he's the best midfielder at the club. Yves Bissouma, as much as he's not on good form at the moment, first 10 games of the season, he was incredible. And we need to get him back to those kind of heights. I'm I'm just not too sure about Skip. I'm not sure about Højbjerg, and I'm not sure about Lo Celso. I know Lo Celso's had a couple of good games, but his contract is running down. Højbjerg, I don't think he's a good fit for Ange, but I love the mentality and I love what he brings. To be honest, I love him as a player and I love him as a person, but I'm just not sure if he's got the complete right attributes to play in midfield week in, week out for Ange. And I don't think he wants to be someone that just sits around on the bench and plays a bit part role like he has been doing this season. So those are the three players that I look at and I think, look, are their time at the club coming to a bit of an end?
I've never really taken to Lo Celso, I must say, Ben. I just think that he's had opportunities. He's had a lot of injuries. He's gone out on loan as well. And even like these past few weeks, had a couple of good games for us, of course, scoring against Manchester City away as well. But now he's out of the team again. Is it time to cash in on someone like Giovanni Lo Celso?
Look, he's injured again. I mean, this guy just can't stay fit, unfortunately. And I like what he's brought to the team this season. I really do, bar the Fulham game. Let's just put that game to one side. But in the Premier League, I really have liked what I've seen so far. But unfortunately, availability is one of the best qualities, and he's hardly ever available. It's not like Pierre or Højbjerg, right? I think actually Lo Celso is a better fit in terms of tactically for what Ange wants to do. But Højbjerg is the model professional. He's always available. And that's what I love about him. And his mentality is absolutely spot on. So I kind of agree. I think that Lo Celso, his time at the club is coming to an end, and I feel like we should be moving him on, and not for any other reason as well, as opposed to his contract is going to be a year in the summer. So I don't think we should be offering him a new contract. And when you got the likes of Barcelona apparently linked with him, if you believe what's in the press, then I think that's a deal that you probably got to look to do, to be honest, because I don't think we offer him a new contract. And if we wait any longer, the value just decreases and decreases and decreases. So yeah, he's definitely one that we should probably be looking to move on, to be honest.
Ben, what do you make of the Hugo Lloris situation? Because I would have thought that in that Shakhtar Donetsk game at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium pre-season friendly, I would have thought that he would have had some sort of farewell or not a testimonial, but, you know, a real ovation by the Tottenham fans with the service that he's given at the club. But he hasn't even been on the bench this season. Are you surprised?
I'm not really surprised he hasn't been on the bench, albeit I was making the argument pre-season after we brought in Vicario that he probably is a better goalkeeper than Fraser Forster. So why not just keep him on the bench? He's been a great servant to the football club. It actually pains me that his last game was getting taken off at half-time in that game he got up at Newcastle. It does pain me a little bit. That Shakhtar game...
Getting taken off or wanting to go off?
Yeah, well, either or, to be honest. It's just not what a legend of this football club should have to go through. I mean, he should have had the respect of having an honour in that Shakhtar game. If you don't give him that honour, you have to give him a testimonial. He's been club captain for so long. He's been such a great servant for the football club. And in some bizarre way, the Shakhtar keeper got an ovation in that game and not Hugo Lloris. And I was like, what is going on here? I just didn't understand what was going on. You know, that Shakhtar keeper, because he's been at Shakhtar for so long, got a standing ovation and from the Shakhtar players. And I was like, wait a second, we're at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Hugo Lloris has been here for so long. We're probably never going to see him again. Why not honour Hugo? Give him a testimonial. Give him something. But I
actually thinking about it, when was the last time you saw someone had a testimonial? It just seems to be like a thing of the past now.
Yeah, was it Ledley King? Probably.
Yeah, a long time ago. 2013.
But I think it's a really nice way to honour someone that's given so much to the football club. You know, all these times that he's been through how many years has it been? 10, 11 years at the football club? Right?
Yes, it's 2012 he signed, yeah.
Unbelievable. So look, he's been a great servant. I think people's minds, especially fans, have been clouded by the last year or so with Hugo Lloris. Like, recency bias really comes into it, in my opinion. And people shouldn't forget what a great servant and what a great goalkeeper he's been for us throughout those 10 years. So yeah, it hurts me a little bit that he hasn't been honoured. It hurts me a little bit that that's his last game, the Newcastle game. But what can we do? It is what it is.
It's interesting what you just said there about people thinking about players, what they've done in the past. I want to talk a little bit about Ben Davies, because Ange is absolutely raving about Ben Davies. He's been, you know, when he's coming to the team this season under Ange, he's performed extremely well. Do you think the criticism for Ben Davies, even now or in the past, do you think it's unfair?
I'm a fan of Ben Davies, to be honest. I think I'm probably more of a fan now than I was maybe a couple of years ago, to be fair. But I think it's a bit unfair that Ben Davies gets lumped in there with the guys that desperately need to leave the club, like the Eric Diers and, you know, the Matt Dohertys and the Clement Lengleys and these kind of players. I think he's a level above them. He always comes in, he always does a job, whether it's at left back, whether it's at centre back, he always gives 100%. And he's never below like a 6 or a 7 out of 10. Like, he always shows his quality. And especially now in this run that we've been on, since Mickey van der Ven's been injured, he has been absolutely phenomenal in this team. I can't sing his praises enough. So I do believe that the criticism he gets is a bit over the top. And it's annoying that people lump him in there with those kind of players. But having said that, he's 30 years old now. His contract runs until 2025, I believe. So in the summer, it'll be a year. Do I want to see him get a new contract? Probably not. I think his time at the club is probably coming to an end, but I completely appreciate everything that he's done for this football club, and I appreciate what he's doing this season. Do I want to see him sold this summer? No. I want to see him stay another year with us and maybe see out his contract at Spurs. But I think to give him a new contract at 30, 31, maybe lasting till 33, 34 years old, I think we just need to move on a little bit as a football club. But I highly appreciate Ben Davies.
He's one of those players, though, Ben, that Postecoglou was talking about when he said you cannot have, you know, a whole squad of world-class players. You need players like this in your squad.
You do. No, you do. But we need to find the next generation of Ben Davies, in my opinion. Like, how long can we go? How long can we go for? Like, he's 30 years old at the end of the day. Like, what, are we going to give him a contract till he's 34, 35 years old?
Yeah,
We need to move on at some point.
Emerson Royale, of course, he had a hard time when he signed for Spurs. Then he had a good moment. And now Pedro Porro, of course, you know, Pedro Porro has been one of my favourite players this season to watch. He's been absolutely unreal. And I think that Pedro Porro gets better week by week. What do you think the future holds for Emerson?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of Emerson. I'm not going to lie. I like his attitude, and I just don't like his application. Or application's the wrong word, because I think he always gives 100% on the football pitch. I just don't think he has the required ability to suit what we are doing with Ange at the moment. I think you saw it when he came in at left back in the Wolves game. It's just night and day between him and Destiny Udogie. Destiny was coming into the midfield, helping us with the ball progression, helping us keep the ball. On the ball, Destiny is just so good. And I just feel like Emerson, every time he's on the ball, I feel like I'm banging my head against a brick wall. I think that's how poor he is on the ball. And I think everyone, whether you're a centre-back, goalkeeper, left-back, right-back, centre-mid, you have to be top-notch on the ball in this system. And unfortunately, Emerson isn't that. And the only way I want to see Emerson play now is if Pedro Porro is injured. I don't want to see him at left-back. Don't want to see him at centre-back. And I mean, I don't really want to see him at right back, but if Pedro Porro is injured, he's like the only option that we got, to be honest. But I think like we should be looking to sell him in the summer. It is a shame, because I think like he's a bit of a cult figure here, where with his mentality, with his jokes and everything like that, I like him as a person. But in terms of his footballing ability, I just don't see where he fits in, to be honest. And I think every time he started this season, we haven't won. We've drawn or lost every time he started this season. That's the stat. Whatever you want to read into that, you can read into that. But like I said, I just don't think he's of the required ability of what we're trying to do here.
Højbjerg apparently wants to go out the door. Oliver Skipp as well. You know, he's performed very well when he came in under Postecoglou. And I think that both of them, they have performed well under Ange. What have you made of both of them? Would you like to see them two head out the door? Because, you know, certainly in recent weeks, I've seen a lot of criticism on Oliver Skipp, but it's fair to say, like, even the Forest game on Friday, he's come on and he's done a job.
I don't know. I mean, Skipp needs to further his development, in my opinion.
Or Ben, could I put it another way? So, some of these players that we're mentioning, could they develop even better and become better players under Ange? Because I think it's fair to say that Ben Davies is a much better player under Ange Postecoglou, as we've just mentioned.
Yeah, I agree with that. Ben Davies is a better player under Postecoglou. And I agree that they can get better under Ange, 100%. But Højbjerg wants to be starting every game. He wants to play at the Euros. He wants to play at the World Cups. He's one of his country's most important players. Let's have it right. So for him to be here and to have all those midfielders ahead of him in the pecking order, I think there's only one option but for him to leave. I don't think he's going to fight his way to be ahead of Bissouma, Bentancur, and all the top midfielders that we have at the moment. Even Kulusevski moving into the middle now and moving into midfield, who's much better than him and has much better technical ability. So as much as I do rate Højbjerg, I just feel like he's so far down the pecking order that he's only got one option but to leave and to go and start week in, week out, because he can start week in, week out at top clubs.
But fair play to him, though, Ben. Every single time he's come in, he's done a magnificent job. He's been like the true professional, hasn't he?
He's a model professional. We know that about Højbjerg. He's always going to give 100%. And that's why we love him so much, because no matter what happens, he'll be ready to play at any point in the game. He'll come in and do a job for us. So that's Højbjerg. On Ollie Skip is a bit different, because I feel Ollie Skip needs to be playing football to aid his development. You got to remember, he's still a young player, hasn't played that much football in his career. Yeah. And I feel like him just being on the bench, not getting too many minutes, he's just going to stagnate. So I feel like we either need to sell him or he needs to go out on loan and get minutes regularly in the Premier League. So I was a big fan of Ollie Skip under Nuno, under Conte. But every time I've seen him this season, I just feel like we need more. We need a better technician in the middle of the park. I like the attitude he has. I like the ability. I just feel like he needs a bit more technical ability, and maybe he can get that, because when he was a younger boy coming through the ranks in the youth academy, he was known for that technical ability. There was that, I don't know if you ever saw that video of the Dutch team playing under 19s or under 21s talking about Ollie Skip, saying, wow, this Ollie Skip, don't give him an inch. He's unbelievable football player, that technical ability they were talking about.
I remember watching Oliver Skip as a 17-year-old playing in the under 23s at the time. I know it's changed now to under 21s, but it was the under 23s at the time. So he was playing against guys that were 6 years older than him. He was the best player on the pitch.
Yeah, look, I do rate Ollie Skip, don't get me wrong, but I just feel like him being here under these circumstances right now, it's just making him stagnate a little bit, and it's not helping him and it's not helping us, just him playing a bit part role and minutes here and there. So maybe the best course of action is for him to go out on loan for a year to another Premier League club, maybe a bit lower down in the table, maybe. But I just feel like, again, like I said with Højbjerg, with the midfield players that we have here, is Ollie Skip ever going to break his way into the team consistently with the midfielders that we got here? I very much question it.
Would you agree with me that I don't see any of our players leaving in the January transfer window, certainly on a permanent deal, because of the amount of injuries and suspensions we've got? You agree with that?
I think that if we wouldn't have had the injuries, I could have seen Højbjerg potentially going. But now we do have the injuries. We just can't allow him to go. That's just the facts of the matter. We just cannot allow him to go. We're too short on numbers as it is. So if we sell anyone, we have to replace them. But even replacing them, we still need more numbers than that. So I don't think. I agree with you. I don't think we can let any player go, to be honest.
Ben, you mentioned Eric Dier earlier. Of course, his contract runs out at the end of the season. Do you think that Spurs should try to cash in on him in January, because he seems adamant that he wants to see out the contract until the summer? And also to add in the question about Ashley Phillips, I've got to admit, I think that when we go through this rebuild as a football club, we buy Ashley Phillips in, and Ange has said many times that he is part of the first team squad. Were you surprised that when we had the injury suspensions and so on, that Ashley Phillips didn't actually come in and Eric Dier was actually before him?
I was surprised, to be honest. And I think Ange saw very quickly that Eric Dier wasn't going to cut it. I mean, we've seen that for a long time. I know we've seen that for a long time, but Ange needs to see it himself. And I think Ange would have known in the back of his mind anyway, but I thought he maybe gave him the respect because he's been at the club for so long and he's been a good servant and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I was surprised not to see Ashley Phillips. And I think we would have seen Ashley Phillips by now if he didn't get that injury, to be honest. And he's still injured now, which is very unfortunate. So I feel like a lot of people being like, oh, we need to bring in two centre-backs. But I don't agree. I think only one I think we only need to bring in one because you've got the likes of Ashley Phillips coming through. You've got the likes of Dorrington as well. So Ange already said only a few weeks ago, like, oh, the fixtures are coming up thick and fast now. Dorrington probably is going to get his chance. And I would love to see Dorrington get his chance, but I wouldn't like to see him get his chance this weekend at Everton because they're like the most physical team in the Premier League, but maybe against Brighton. But I think I would love to cash in on Eric Dier in January, but I just don't think it's going to happen because he's kicking his heels in to stay at the club until that contract's up, till he gets the big signing on bonus, gets the pick of the clubs that he wants to go to. I mean, we had offers for him in the summer and he rejected them all. So what's going to change now?
Ben, what have you made of the red cards this season, Basuma and Romero in particular? And, you know, with the aggression, I've got to admit, I like the aggression under Postecoglou, and I've liked the aggression this season. But do both of those, particularly Christian Romero, do they need to tone it down a little bit?
So with Romero, I mean, I'm very apprehensive on it because I feel like if you ask Romero to turn it down, then you lose a big kind of chunk of his game. And you don't want to take that out of his game, in my opinion, because that's what he's all about. That's why he's so good, that aggressive, being on the front foot, stepping into midfield, consistently intercepting the ball out of his opponents. But having said that, you have to realize the circumstances that you're in. And that Newcastle game, for example, 3-0 up, and he goes and does that challenge. Like, there was just no need for it. It's just a silly challenge to make. And if he would have got sent off from that challenge and he would have been out for another 3 or 4 games, then he would have really put us in it. And I feel like there's a time, a place, and a moment to do it. And when you're 3-0 up against Newcastle and the game's pretty much done, just calm down a little bit. You know what I mean? But I do feel like Bissouma needs to sort himself out, to be honest, because both those red cards was just so silly. The first one, sent off for diving. Like, there is never an excuse to get sent off for diving, ever. Yeah. And the second red card, I mean, he's just trying to make up for his loose touch, but he didn't need to lunge in like that. So Bissouma, I've been really annoyed with Bissouma since that Luton game, to be honest, but I know he's got the quality, so I'm going to keep backing him.
Ben, what do you think the future holds for Tanguy Ndombele? Do you think we'll ever see him in a Spurs shirt again?
I don't know, probably a few trips to McDonald's or something. I don't know. But we're never going to see him again. No chance. If you would have asked my brother was dying for him to come back in the summer. He really was. Yeah, he was. And I was like, what are you talking about? Have you not been watching the last 2 or 3 years? I mean, the guy annoys me so much because he's got all the ability in the world. He is probably technically better than any player at this football club right now. Maybe even technically better than anyone in the Premier League. That's how good.
Do you know what really annoys me, though? The body language. It is the body language, because even at Galatasaray now, the body language of even the warm-ups, it's like he doesn't want to be there. And like you say, the ability that the guy's got, what a waste of talent.
It is. It's a shame. It's a big shame, because when we signed him, I was so excited. I saw him in Lyon as well. I watched a few of their games and he was just breathtaking at times. But we should have seen this coming, to be honest, because I had a chat with a Lyon fan on the channel when we signed him, just to get a bit more info about him. And they said to me on that chat, look, he really gets up for the big games, but we question his mentality because sometimes in the small games he doesn't turn up and you can see him just walking around the pitch a little bit. And I was really shocked when they said that, because I didn't know that was the case. And then everything unfolded at Tottenham the way it unfolded, and it culminated of him walking off against Morecambe like he did. And I'm happy we haven't seen him since then, because he's been a disgrace to the badge and a disgrace to this football club with the way he's held himself. And if it was up to me, I probably would have ripped up the contract a year ago. Do
you think we'll ever see Jed Spence in a Spurs shirt again? Do you want to see him in a Spurs shirt again?
I don't know. I don't know what's gone on with Jed Spence. It seems like there's something going on in the background with him. He's starting to get a look in at Leeds now. The last 3 or 4 games, I think he's played for Leeds. And I believe he's having quite good performances. But then again, it's back in the Championship where we know he can do it. When we signed him, right back of the year in the Championship. And now again, I was really excited to see him play. I'm not sure what's gone on or why he never got a look in or what's happened there. But I think he's a player who's got quality. I don't think he's ever got a chance. I'm not sure why that is. Is it a mentality problem? Is there something going on in the background that we don't know about? I just don't know what the situation is. But with what I've said on Emerson Royale, if Jed can come in next season and be the backup to Porro and do it to a high level, I'll be 100% for that.
Yeah. What about Ryan Sessegnon? Do you think we'll see him in a Spurs shirt again?
No.
Do you remember, Ben, that excitement? So many people wanted to sign Ryan Sessegnon. And of course, he's had so many injury problems.
Yeah. Look, that summer is just looking like the worst business like any club has ever done, ever. What was it? Ndombele for 65 million, Sessegnon for 30, and Lo Celso, what was it, for 45 or something like that? I mean...
Bearing in mind, we hadn't spent a penny in 518 days, and then we have that transfer window, yeah.
And everyone's calling back Poch. We've just got to the Champions League final, and that's what we spend the money on. It's just absolutely ridiculous. But Sessegnon, where does he fit in under Ange? Because I don't think he can play that inverted left-back role. I just don't think that's him.
Yeah.
Is it a left winger? I don't think like he's of the required ability. Like when you're comparing him to the likes of a Heung-Min Son out on the left wing, like, do I need to say any more? So I think Sessegnon's time has come and gone. I think we tried to sell him in the summer, to be honest, and then he got another injury which held it back. So I think it's just delaying the inevitable, and I think he will be out of the football club, and I don't think we will see him again, to be honest.
Ben, when most of us fans, certainly the fan channels, say we need a striker, we need to sign a striker in January, and then of course the last couple of games, Richarlison hits form, 3 goals in the last 2, and of course we signed Viles in the summer as well. Do you think that the club will think now, well, Richarlison's hitting form, he's scoring goals, we've got Brennan Johnson who can actually play through the middle, we've got Heung-Min Son who can play through the middle, I know of course he's off to his cup competition with South Korea. But what do you think of Viles as well? Do you think that he will go out on loan perhaps in January? Because it does seem quite strange that Ange Postecoglou says he is a first team player, but he hasn't had many minutes.
Yeah, it's a bit frustrating, to be honest, because the first game he came on, I think, the Liverpool game, I think it was, and he came on, he put himself about. I thought he looked a bit bright, to be honest, and there was one moment where someone could have slipped him in and he would have been through on goal, but they just didn't find the right pass. But ever since then, just a minute here, a minute there, it's been a bit frustrating. I'm not sure if he's actually been brought in to contribute this year or not, but I would like to see him go out on loan to a team in England. It has to be a team in England because he needs to get used to the way that they play football in this country, in my opinion. But, you've got players coming through in the youth as well. You've got Dane Scarlett. Troy Parrott is still on loan. He's doing quite well in the Netherlands. I'm not sure what the plan is for him. You've got players coming through the ranks as well, like Jude Sunsop-Bell. He can't stop scoring for the under-21s. Yeah. You've got Will Lancashire as well, who's doing really well. Jamie Donnelly, I know he's not a striker, but, an attacking player as well. So you've got so many players on the books at the moment that look like they could be coming through. I'm just not sure what the plan is for Alejo Viles, to be honest. But in terms of Richarlison, I actually thought from the beginning of the season that he could do a really good job in Ange's system. Just stick up at the top as number 9, finish the chances when you get them. It was obviously his head wasn't right first part of the season, carrying that injury. Since he's had that surgery and it seems like he's put those problems behind him, I thought these last 2 games he's been brilliant. He really has been brilliant. 3 goals in 2 games. But look, he needs to prove it from now until the end of the season. I think this is his real test now. I think if he can prove his worth from now until the end of the season and get, I think he's on 7 goal contributions at the moment. If he can get about 15, maybe even 20 goal contributions by the end of the season, I would say like I'm more than happy for him to stay. And I'm more than happy to stick my cards in the Richarlison basket and say that let's just focus on wingers. Let's put the striker thing to one side. But it's a big question mark because Richarlison's been here since the start of last season, and it's only these last 2 games we're starting to see, the real Richarlison, let's say. But let's hope this is the real Richarlison, and last season wasn't the real Richarlison.
Are you a fan of Richarlison, Ben? Because when you read comments on social media, particularly after games where he's not done that well, and of course he started in that central role under Ange at the start of the season, are you a fan? Because there, of course, are so many reports coming out as well that the Saudi League are going to come calling at the end of the season. Would you be disappointed if he left?
I think, I wasn't a fan before he joined Spurs. When the link started coming out, I started to buy into it, and I'd be like, oh, yeah, Richarlison is an unbelievable player. We should get him in. He's going to complement what we do so well. And also, like, the back end of that season with Everton, he kind of, like, single-handedly saved Everton from relegation that season. So that's what kind of made me like him a bit more. I never really liked his antics on the pitch, and he seemed to have a bit of an attitude problem, but I think I was wrong on that one. I don't think he has an attitude problem, actually. I just think he's a bit misunderstood at times. Let's put it that way. And I think his first season was limited minutes, shunted out to the right, sometimes on the left, up front. He never really had a proper position, but I was completely on the Richarlison train when he signed for us. I really was. I was a massive fan of him. And he disappointed me last season. He disappointed me to a point, saying, look, is this guy ever going to come good? I was saying if we get a good offer, we may as well sell. And then Ange comes in, and I thought, all right, this could be a good season for Richarlison. I think the system is going to suit what he wants, from playing up front, even out left. I think he's had okay performances out left so far this season, but his injury and his personal problems, let's say, I felt held him back a little bit. But since these games, I felt like he's really standing up for the team. So I'm a bit muddled up in my head on Richarlison, because I've like flip-flopped on him so many times. I don't know where I stand with him.
It's a funny one, isn't it? Because every Spurs fan, especially when you go to the games, you're cheering these players on. You really want it to work. Like Soldado, I wanted it to work for him, but sometimes it just doesn't work at some football clubs. And sometimes you just have to say, it's not going to work. You need to move on. And I completely agree with you. We need to move on as a football club and, sign the right players and make sure that Andrew's got the correct players to take the club forward and perhaps win a trophy or two. Ben, what have you made?
Richarlison, though, Chris, I don't think that's the same case as Richarlison, because we're seeing a lot more from Richarlison now. So I think we have to wait until the end of the season to make that judgment call. Completely
agree. And I know he's had a lot of mental issues. He's had injuries as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that does develop, certainly in the next couple of months. What have you made of the signings, Ben, like in the summer? Because the whole spine of the team changed. Of course, Harry Kane went, Heung-Min Son came into the middle, and then, as you mentioned, Maddison behind him, Van der Ven. Have you been surprised on how good Van der Ven has actually been when he's played in a Spurs shirt? Because, a lot of people didn't even know Van der Ven was before the start of this season.
Yeah, I did know who he was, and I did extensive research on him, and I thought he'd be a really good fit and maybe complement Coutinho really well, which he has. But I never expected him to hit the ground running as fast as he did. I mean, pretty much from his first debut against Brentford. And don't forget, he only signed about 2 days before that Brentford game. Yeah, and you're thinking, like, how the hell is he going to play, first of all? And how is he going to have a competent game? And he was brilliant that day. Yeah. He's only grown since then. He's got better and better pretty much every game in a Spurs shirt. And I'm super surprised. I'm not surprised how good he is, but I'm surprised about how quickly it took him to settle into this team and settle into the Premier League. Because how many defenders specifically do you see come into the Premier League and take a while to settle in? And he's a very young player. I was just gobsmacked to how good he actually is. And you've got to commend the scouting team for bringing in these kind of players. And on the transfer window, in terms of the quality that we brought in, I actually think it's the best transfer window we've had under ENIC. That's how good I think it was. So James Maddison, top signing. Vicario, top signing. Van der Ven, top signing. Manuel Solomon, I think he's still got a bit to prove. It's unfortunate he got injured when he did, because I felt like he had a couple of good games. That game against Burnley when we won 5-2, I thought he was actually brilliant that game. Got 2 assists. It's a shame he got injured. Who am I forgetting that we brought in this summer? Who am I forgetting? Alejo Veliz, question mark.
Well, of course, Udogie was signed already, but of course he's made his debut this season. So him as well. Phillips, who we've mentioned already. Vicario.
Brennan Johnson. I really like Brennan Johnson. Brennan Johnson, I feel like he's not as good on the left as when he's on the right. But when he's on the right, you can really see what he's about. Direct, quick. And I just feel like there's so much more to come from Brennan Johnson from what we've seen already, to be honest.
Is Brennan Johnson a typical Ange Postecoglou signing, Ben? Because he's not a world superstar, but of course he can be a player that Ange can really develop, a young player who can play in multiple positions. Is that the sort of guy that you think that Ange may be bringing in this coming transfer window in January? Because he seems to like players that are versatile, that can play in a number of different positions.
Is he a classic Ange Postecoglou signing? I would say on one hand, yeah.
And also, would you ever think that Brennan Johnson would play centrally in this team?
I mean, with the way our club is going with the injuries, you can't count anything out, to be honest. I wouldn't count Vicario playing up front, to be honest. But,
well, you've played at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. You might get a call up.
Yeah, you never know. You never know, Chris. Look, maybe if Vicario has to go up front, then maybe you'll be called up to play in goal. You never know what can happen. But I think, to your question, is he the classic Postecoglou signing? I would say yes, in a sense where he's versatile, he's quick, he can take on his man. But I would actually say, as a winger, I don't think he's actually a proper classic Postecoglou winger. I think he needs to get much better at his one-on-one dribbling, to be honest. And I think I would like to see him get better at his crossing as well. But it's still early days. So, like I said before, I really like Brennan Johnson, and there's a lot more to come. But what I'm kind of explaining in terms of what he's not good enough, I think that's what more to come is. So maybe he can turn into that kind of classic Postecoglou signing. But as of now, I wouldn't put him there just yet.
Ben, all joking aside about us playing at the Spurs Stadium last year, what an experience that was. It was incredible, wasn't it? Has it made you think or feel any different about those players being on the pitch and how close those seats are, and you can see every single face and you can hear what the fans are saying? Has it made you feel any different playing there?
Has it made me? It was just like, I mean, when I was there, I just couldn't even think about anything like that. I was just like completely in awe of just being on that football pitch. It's like one of those bucket list things just ticked off. I mean, I went on the pitch at the old White Hart Lane. I took a penalty against Hans Segers, and don't ask me the result of that penalty because it was fairly embarrassing. But I'll tell you, I basically ran up to take the penalty, and I mishit the ball, and the ball just like trickled into his arms, basically. But look, I was lucky enough to do that. But to actually take part in a game at the new stadium was just unbelievable. And like, I couldn't kind of put myself in the spot to think about what it's like in a packed stadium when there's 60,000 fans there. It must be just so intense, because it was intimidating just being there with no fans in it. Like, imagine what it's like just being in a packed stadium where they're singing. And even like, well, let's say Richarlison, for example, he takes a bad touch or he has a bad miss, and then you just hear the groans and the moans from everyone around you. Like, it must have a really big impact on you. And to be a professional footballer, you've got to be so strong. Your mentality has got to be so strong to just keep going. And you've got to give massive credit to Richarlison, because since he's joined Spurs, he must have heard a lot of those groans and moans, and to come back the way he has done and to perform the way he has done in the last 2 games, you've got to give him massive credit.
Yeah, I was delighted to be on the winning side that day.
Yeah, I wasn't, to be honest. I had a bit of because I got brought on. Mickey Hazard brought me on, and then he brought me off like literally like a minute later. And I said to Mickey, you just brought me on. Why are you taking me off? And he's like, get off, come on, get off. And then he called me a prima donna or something. But it was all in good, light-hearted spirit.
Do you know, me playing in goal, I just thought, like, the guys like yourself who I know, I thought if you score, or one of the other guys who I know score, I will never ever in my life hear the end of it. So I'm so glad that the guys that did score, I didn't know them.
You know what? I'm not sure if you were in that goal at that moment in time, but
I played the whole game.
Did you? Oh, so you were. Oh, you must have been a goal there. The ball comes through, and I'm running through on goal, and I'm thinking in my head, I'm 1-on-1 at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Like, what do I do now? And I took that split second to make my decision. I was about to pull the trigger, and then I got completely hacked down. And we got a free kick just outside the box. So I was gutted, because I was definitely going to start it past you. I'll tell you that.
It was a great tackle, and it would have been a great save, Ben. We know that. Let's talk about the upcoming games. Of course, We face Everton at home next at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium 2 days before Christmas, and then Brighton away, Bournemouth at home, Burnley in the FA Cup, and then in January, Manchester United away, Brentford at home. These upcoming fixtures, how are you feeling? You feeling confident that Spurs are going to pick up maximum points and go through to the fourth round of the FA Cup?
I'm confident that we're going to go through to the fourth round of the FA Cup. The games that I'm confident, in a weird way, the most confident I am is for the Brighton game away at Brighton, because I think the way Brighton are playing at the moment, they're just so open at the back. I feel like we've got so many tools to hurt them. They're not playing too well at the moment. They're a team not on form. So I'm actually most confident about that game. The game I'm least confident about is actually this game coming up against Everton. I mean, they look like a frightening prospect at the moment. That 10-point deduction seems to have really invigorated them. They're such a physical team. And they score. I saw a stat the other day. They score 1 in every 11 corner that they take. And that is a hallmark of a Sean Dyche team. And I just feel like there's a possibility for us to get a bit Dyche this weekend, especially with the injuries that we have. No Destiny Udogie. Is Emerson going to come in at left back? Is a massive concern and worry for me. So I do worry for this game against Everton coming up. But I think we can get 3 points in the other Premier League games. I would say if we get 3, 6, 9, 10 points over the next 4 games, I'll say that's a brilliant return.
Absolutely. Well, give me a score prediction for the Everton game if you're feeling nervy about it. Do you know what, Ben? I feel like the old days when we were under Mauricio Pochettino, and bearing in mind, I hate him now. You know, seeing that Chelsea badge on his chest, I don't like that whatsoever. I know we've moved on as a football club, but you know, Pochettino for me, he's Tottenham, and you know, to see Chelsea on it. What's that?
It's only because you look like him.
No, I don't look like nothing like him. Do you know? I went in the betting shop the other day, and this woman looked up and went, "Oh my God, Mauricio Pochettino." I was like, "No, I thought you were joking." But no, to see him wear that Chelsea badge, I don't like it whatsoever. But I forgot what I was going to say now. Talking about Pochettino, do you think he'll be successful there?
If he has the time, if they give him the time, he'll be successful there. I have no doubt in my mind. I think that you're looking at what Chelsea are and what they're doing right now. No manager is going to come in and hit the ground running at Chelsea right now. They're going in a completely different direction than they ever have done. And I feel for that direction that they're going in, Pochettino is one of the most perfect men to spearhead that project. But I feel like the fans are always going to have that in the back of their mind. Oh, he's a Spurs manager. He's a Spurs this. He's a Spurs that. You're already hearing the moans and the groans coming out from the fans right now. So I feel like the Chelsea fans should be putting that to one side, and they should be seeing what he's done at Spurs and how he did it at Spurs. They've got so much money there to spend at Chelsea, and they're buying some of the best top talent, youth talent from around Europe. So they need to give him time. And if they do give him time, they'll reap the benefits for it. But I hope he gets sacked this season.
The managers just don't seem to have that decision, though. And, you know, the clubs just bring the players in. And, of course, we know we've been there. You know, last season, Conte saying Jed Spence, club signing. He said that multiple times, which can't be good for a player's confidence. But, yeah, that's what I was going to say. I feel that confidence, like when we used to play that entertaining football under Pochettino, I used to go into every single game, home or away, thinking we're going to win. You know, the confidence was there from me as a fan, and I feel exactly the same this season under Postecoglou, because although they're very open games, you know, Postecoglou just has this attitude that we'll score more goals, we'll be entertaining, and we'll, you know, entertain the crowd. But I'm going to go into this Everton game thinking that we're going to get 3 points. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 Spurs win. What are you going to go with, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of took that prediction from my head. I was thinking the exact same thing. I mean, as much as I was saying I think it's going to be a really hard game and I'm worried about the game, as much as I am, I still think we can turn up and we can get a result, because you're looking at the players that we have, Heung-Min Son and the firepower, Kulusevski, the way he's playing at the moment is absolutely breathtaking. Pedro Porro, I mean, I'm a massive fan of Pedro Porro, the way he's playing at the moment. So we've got a lot of players that can hurt Everton, but the way they play and the way they're playing at the moment could really combat what we're doing, and maybe hit us with our defensive frailties and set pieces and stuff like that. So I think it's going to be a really difficult game, a really physical game. Because we're at home, I'm going to side with the boys, and I'm going to agree with you as well. 2-1 Spurs.
Ben, before I ask you about who win the league and be relegated this season, just want to touch on Heung-Min Son because you mentioned leadership earlier. You know, us Spurs fans, particularly the fan channels, you know, in recent years have said about that we lack the leadership. For me personally, I thought it was excellent the way Ange Postecoglou appointed 2 vice captains and Heung-Min Son as the captain. Was that the right choice for you? And, you know, we're seeing a different Sonny now, because even when he brought down a player, I forget what game it was, a couple of games ago, he brought down a player, and I thought, I've never seen Heung-Min Son do that. It was, I think it might have even been the Forest game, where he took one for the team. And I've never seen him do that. And you just seem to have like an aggressive Heung-Min Son this season, which I'm loving. And some people have questioned his leadership on the pitch, but I'm seeing it every game.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I would even go as far as to say the leadership qualities that I'm seeing from him on and off the pitch have been better than any captain I've ever seen at Spurs. Better than Ledley King, better than, any sort of captain, even like the likes of Harry Kane. So, I mean, Lloris, 100% better than Lloris. I mean,
well,
I think
even actually, sorry to interrupt, even the communication, Vicario talking to the defenders, I've seen him talk to the defenders more in this 6 months than, you know, no disrespect to Hugo Lloris, but I've seen him talk to the defenders more than Lloris has done in the past 11 years.
Yeah, and we've had a massive leadership problem at Spurs over the past 4 or 5 years. No one really trying to stand up for the team and take it by the scruff of the neck. And you're seeing Son do that. And I feel like he's really taking the initiative to build that connection with the fan base again. You know, those small things you see, like the huddles in front of the away ends and stuff like that, making sure the players go over to the fans after the games at away games. I think it's absolutely spectacular. You see him as well trying to G up his players, giving pep talks to each and every one of his players. The way he embraces all the players after the game. I think he's a phenomenon. And as much as I wanted him to be captain at the start of the season before it was announced, I never in my wildest imaginations thought he'd be this good at leading the team. It's brought out a new side to him. He's a Spurs legend already, but now it's just taken it up tenfold, in my opinion. And like I said before, he's the best captain in this, even in this short space of time that I've ever seen in my lifetime. And that is saying something, because I thought Ledley King was a brilliant captain.
Ben, at the moment, Luton, Burnley and Sheffield United are in the bottom 3. Arsenal, of course, are top of the Premier League. Jose Mourinho, on that podcast that I mentioned earlier, he gave Manchester City a 51% chance of winning the league and Liverpool 49%. And when asked about Arsenal, he went, no. Who do you think? Who do you think will win the Premier League this season?
I'm actually going to go for Liverpool. You know, I've got a sneaky feeling it's going to be Liverpool. I'm looking at Liverpool. I know, you know, they were poor against Manchester United, and they should have won that game easily, to be honest. But you're looking at their form in the last 27 games in the Premier League. They've only lost 1. And that was to us when they had 9 men, when they probably shouldn't even lost that game anyway. So I think that you can't ignore that kind of form over a long stretch of time, in my opinion. And I think Man City, something doesn't seem right with them at the moment. They have dropped off, but you never know what can happen with Man City. Second half of the season, they could go win 20 games in a row and go and win the league. So it's not beyond them to do that. So I do think it's between them two. Arsenal, you can't really count Arsenal out, but I can never in my right mind say that Arsenal are going to win the league. So I think that Declan Rice has been a massive difference for them. I think he's a top player, and I'd be deluded to say otherwise. I actually think Declan Rice has probably been the best player in the Premier League this season in terms of what he's given to a football club. So Arsenal are there and thereabouts, but I just feel like Liverpool and Man City have just been there. They've done it. They've got the experience, and particularly Liverpool are just on, over a longer stretch of time, better form.
Yeah, everything you just said there, that's exactly why I'm backing Manchester City to win the league, and especially after these last few results. You know that form is not going to continue under Pep, and he's going to demand the absolute best. And you're right, they can go on a run, and we've seen it before. Ben, let's talk a little bit about your channel. Of course, it's really evolved over the last couple of years. I don't know whether you remember when we were sharing a pint at the Wembley season. You remember me saying to you and Sim, you need to do interviews with fans after the game, and you two went, no, we're not going to go down that route. And of course, look at your channel now.
Yeah, I mean, we're not really interviewing fans at games. We were for a period of time. Now we do more like call-in shows after watch-alongs on the game. So we kind of like cover both things. We go to the game and cover the aspects at the game. And sometimes I stay and do the watch-along. Sim stays and does the watch-along. Or if me and Sim both go to the game, then we've got two people here doing the watch-along. So we do interview fans in terms of like fans from all over the world, which is quite fun. But yeah, I mean, at the period of time when we were interviewing fans outside of the game, I mean, it was fun communicating with people regularly, but I kind of just fancy just going to the game and having a pint and just relaxing and just enjoying it, to be honest. I don't like working too much, if you know what I mean.
I know what you mean. It's great doing these channels, but sometimes you think, I just want to watch the game. And there are some times where I've not done the fan cams actually in the last year or two. And I just think, no, I'm going to really enjoy the game. But what have you made of social media and the amount of YouTube channels that there are now, not just covering Tottenham, but other clubs as well? Because it's huge now, isn't it?
It's massive. And it's crazy to think, like, since we started doing our channels, because me, you, like Max, Expressions, we were like the first kind of group that were doing it, right?
Yeah.
And now you've got about countless amounts of Spurs channels. Like, just forget the rest of the Premier League. You've got so many different Spurs channels, so many different great creators doing stuff at the moment. I'm loving seeing all the content that they're making. I love how much this space has evolved, and I think it's only going to keep evolving and keep evolving. I've met so many great friends doing this stuff that have made their own channels and are doing so well for themselves as well. I'm just loving it, to be honest. I love every second of it. I mean, the day that I quit my day job and did this full time was probably the best decision I ever made. And I'm loving every second of it. And I can't thank all the people that come and interact with us and come on the channel. And, you know, every time I go to the game, people asking me for selfies and you know, just trying to come up and chat with like people I've never met before. And it's just unbelievable, to be honest. And I never thought, like 10 years ago, when I was just a Spurs obsessed guy, just going games week in, week out, up and down the country, that in 10 years time, my job will be talking about Tottenham with my brother, which I did every day anyway.
Yeah, incredible. Well, many congratulations on the channel. It seems to be thriving. Ben, very last question for you. Of course, the baby is due any minute, any hour, any day. Any names in mind? Do you know whether it's a boy or a girl? And will it be a Tottenham fan?
Do you really think I'll let my child not be a Tottenham fan? I said to Ashley, who's my wife, I said, the first thing I'm doing when the baby is born is season ticket waiting list. That is the first thing I'm doing before we register the baby, before we do anything. That's the first thing that's going to happen, is season ticket waiting list. So unfortunately for the baby, I do know, well, not unfortunately, I do know the sex, but unfortunately I'm not going to be telling you on stream. Or off stream, to be honest. But I would say that this baby is either going to hate Spurs or absolutely love Spurs, because they're going to have it absolutely rammed down their throat.
Well, hopefully they can live many trophies and say, Dad, what was your problem? You know, we're getting trophies and we're being in the Champions League non-stop. Wouldn't that be nice? Ben, you've been an absolute great guest. And as you've said, on and off air, we do need to collaborate a lot more. So hopefully you'll be back on this channel a whole lot more in the future. And of course, I do miss not seeing you at those European games. Normally chatted to you and Sim at the airports many times, you know, during those Champions League games. So hopefully we'll be back in the Champions League very soon, hopefully next season. But yeah, look forward to seeing you and Sim in the very near future. And you're always very welcome on this channel.
Thank you very much, Chris. And hopefully we'll be able to get you on We Are Tottenham TV pretty soon as well. I mean, I'm obviously about to take a break from YouTube for a little while. So once we're back and I'm back and up and running, I'm looking forward to doing some more content with you. I loved it today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And as I say, many congratulations again to you and Ashley, and best of luck with everything. I hope it all goes well, and we will see you soon. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening. And until the next time, come on, you Spurs.